enjoy the ride through my presentation. So I'd like to share my screen now just to show what we will be talking about. So hopefully I will be able to do that now. Just give me a second. That will be screen one from the current slide. Okay, let me just first do this. I did screen one. You will be seeing screen one. Yes, of this. Let me do this. I hope I'm sharing the right thing now. Okay, from the beginning. Okay, is everybody able to see the presentation? It should just be your whole screen with the following words: ECD challenges and the importance of self-care. Can somebody just confirm if that is what you are currently seeing on your side?
Yes, yes, that's what I see. Hello.
Okay.
I can also see it, yes.
Thank you.
Confirm.
You can also see me. Okay, great stuff. Great stuff. Okay, so let's get to it. So today's focus, the topic is going to be ECD challenges and the importance of self-care. For those that just unmuted, to help me know that you are able to see what I'm trying to present, just mute yourselves. Thank you. It can be sometimes very distracting if there's background noise. So let's talk about the agenda. What is on the menu for you tonight? We're going to briefly look at factors that contribute to your career choice. We're going to look at passion and purpose. We're going to look at general ECD challenges that you might face and the coping mechanisms connected to some of these challenges. So just in a broad spectrum, this is what we will be discussing tonight. So I hope that your ears are open, your minds are clear, that you are able to absorb all this information. And as we go along and you have any questions, like mentioned previously, you're welcome to share that in the chat and I will have a look at it afterwards. So let's begin. Since you are all enrolled with BrainJar, you have chosen a career in the education sector. But what led to you making this choice? What leads to all of us making such important choices in life as the career that we would like to follow? Various factors. As you would see on this presentation, some of these factors include our interests. So what draws your attention? Okay, your skills. What are you good at? Your special abilities, soft skills like your adaptability to change or being a good communicator, personal skills like having a calm nature, hard skills that we can have like your formal education, training, or job experience. Money talks. What role will your career one day play in your livelihood, your lifestyle, education and training? If you think about it, what are you able to do with what you currently have? Do you have matric? Do you qualify for further education or training? What type? What course? What institution will you make use of to further your knowledge and your skills? Job availability. So job availability is quite an important one because the number of job opportunities within the specific job sector is going to determine if there's actually a need for what you are planning on studying. And there's a lot of things that can flood the job market or influence the need. This can vary from dynamics like your economical factors, technological advancements, demographics, industry trends, and the list goes on. Then obviously your passion, and I added passion in bold because we will be going into more depth about what passion is and where one's passion lies. But basically it's what do you enjoy? Then time, okay? Your career takes up a lot of your time in your life. So when we have to factor out sleep, okay, which is approximately what, 6 to 8 hours a day, your job is pretty much a third of your life, if you think about it. So that's not a small amount. If your job is something you hate, that's about a third of your life that you will be unhappy. And if it's something you love, your job might be the experience that brings you some sense of personal fulfillment. It affects who you are at home. So we can all raise our hands to say that whatever we do at work, we sometimes bring back home. So your friends and your family will notice the difference between when you like what you do and when you don't. And ultimately, it's a part of your purpose, identity. I forgot about that. Before we go to purpose, your identity. It's a part of your identity. So if you think about it, when we meet somebody new or you see somebody for the first time in a long time, you'll eventually come to the question, or they will come to the question, so what do you do? Or what do you do for money? Or what do you do for a living? What do you do as a career, your work? And it's undeniable that that's a question that's going to come up somewhere, sometime. Therefore, your career forms such a large part of your identity. It's the first question that we ask when we get asked when we meet somebody. So that's a large portion of your life. And then lastly, before I jump the gun, it provides you with purpose, direction and purpose. As humans, we need a sense of responsibility. We need ownership. We need to do our best when there are people that are counting on us. So we need to feel that our actions are making a difference in this world. And work actually provides you with that sense of direction and purpose in your life. It's fulfilling. And knowing that there's a community of people that is depending on you, counting on you. So it's a place where we are needed, a place that really matters. So career is important. It's not a choice that we take lightly. Okay, having a career should be more than just a job, based on everything that we just saw when it comes to the factors of choosing your career. Therefore, it should be a long-term pursuit that can provide personal fulfillment, financial stability, and a sense of purpose. So therefore, finding your purpose and your passion is a moral obligation. When we don't do what we love, our lives will surely and slowly begin to fall apart. We might find ourselves becoming bitter or resentful, and therefore finding your passion is not only crucial to yourself, but it affects your family, it affects your friends, it affects your relationships, and the world at large. We all have gifts, okay? And the world needs that gift, and therefore we need to foster that gift. So you can see I'm very passionate about people and purpose and our talents, and especially when it comes to our children who are so vulnerable and valuable. So where does passion and purpose fit in when it comes to ECD? Being an early child development educator or teacher or practitioner, where does passion and purpose fit in? In order to determine that, we first need to understand, but what does passion mean? Okay, passion, according to some dictionaries, are defined as a strong liking or desire for something, or a devotion to some activity, object, or concept. Purpose is not about brief happiness or satisfying immediate desires, such as instant gratification, but rather about finding a sense of meaning that sustains a person through life's challenges and transitions. Okay, so that's a mouthful. But if we had to take passion and purpose and combined it with the career choice of ECD, in the context of ECD, what would that mean? It could mean something like to be motivated by the strong desire to positively impact the lives of children from a young age through an educational platform. In other words, you are attracted to the idea of making a real difference in the lives of children through early childhood development practices, which is fundamental and crucial for children's overall development later in life. So there's various ways that you can combine the word passion and purpose with the career choice that you have made. You just need to figure out how that suits you and how that fits into your being. So now we know that it's very important for us to identify why we chose a specific career and why it's important for us that it aligns with your passion and purpose. We need to also look at the challenges that we can encounter as an ECD practitioner. So after doing a brief survey with some educators, these were the main themes that came from my experiment, if I can say it as such. So some of the challenges that came forward for some educators, whether it was in preschool, middle school, or high school, were number one, challenges in the classroom. So challenges that you might already be facing or could be facing while you are doing your training through the Institute of BrainJar in the classroom can be considered challenges within our new generation. So the generation that we are confronted with today that is growing up with technology, different households. So challenges connected to that, different households that's going to lead to different types of discipline and rules. Even this generation where people tend to focus more on gentle parenting, for example, cultural and religious differences. So if you have to take just these few factors that I've mentioned that are diversities within the classroom, you can just imagine how difficult it can be to try and meet the need of the child as well as the need of the parent, and also adhering to school rules and the challenges that comes along with it. So those are just briefly some of the challenges within the classroom associated with these type of diversities. And then academic and other diversity challenges that we can be confronted with. So finding the balance between stimulating the average to the above average and then underdeveloped children. So whether it's fine motor skills, cognitive skills, or big motor skills, if one is better or one struggles a little bit more in a classroom of a lot of children, that it can be difficult to put all those children into the same box. So finding a way to accommodate all the children so that they can reach their full potential might be very difficult. And especially if you have to work according to a specific curriculum or from the Department of Education and try to achieve their goals and requirements. That can be a lot of pressure and be very hard to meet those expectations. Not impossible, but definitely challenges that were recognized. And then thirdly, child development disabilities, neurodevelopmental and behavioral challenges. So we all know that being in a classroom, that we can easily recognize that some children might be on the spectrum. So it's a continuous thing that's going to challenge you on various personal levels. So there are various challenges, but for the purpose of this workshop, like I've mentioned previously, we are going to focus mainly on the personal challenges. I think the other challenges that have been mentioned is discussions for another day, and maybe even from a professional that has direct exposure to these types of challenges and better answers than what I might even be able to give you. So when we look at the challenges that I refer to now, especially from experiencing attitudes of ungratefulness, whether it's from the children, the parents, society in general, the way that they might view educators, the lack of time and energy, all of the things that mentioned can so easily then, if it happens too much, lead to a sense of compassion fatigue or desensitization and ultimate burnout. So what is compassion fatigue? Compassion fatigue is something that occurs as a result of the ongoing demands of being compassionate, so showing a lot of empathy and trying to be helpful to others who are in need, which can place us at risk for becoming desensitized or burned out. Okay, so that's the thing. When you sometimes care so much that you give so much of yourself, so much of your time and your energy, it can lead to a place where you just don't have the energy to worry anymore. You don't have the energy to empathize anymore. And that's where desensitization comes in, because that's a reduced emotional response. So in other words, you become numb due to the continuous exposure of people's hardships or the suffering of in certain situations. So the people that are most likely to experience compassion fatigue that leads to desensitization are social workers, paramedics, doctors, and police. But don't exclude yourself, teachers as well. Okay, because you don't know what exposure you get from the vulnerable. Children are vulnerable. Whenever we feel helpless and hopeless in certain situations, we can so easily become desensitized because it's a protective measure where we then start to lack that empathy. We develop a I don't care attitude anymore, especially if you feel underappreciated. So it's very important to always try, if you might be experiencing some of this, the longer you are within the educational field. And then burnout. So compassion fatigue, desensitization, and burnout goes hand in hand. Burnout is just a state of emotional and physical and mental exhaustion that's caused by these prolonged or excessive stressors that occur in your life. So all this can be as a result of the lack of boundaries. So we can experience compassion fatigue, desensitization, and burnout because we struggle to say no. So we don't have good and healthy boundaries because of people-pleasing tendencies, always trying to accommodate everybody, trying to keep everybody happy. That usually is connected to the fear of failure, not wanting to fail or feel a sense of rejection, or just to have various demands of work and life in general. So these things can so easily lead to the above. So taking that into mind, what are possible signs and symptoms that might be helpful indicators that everything is not a-okay? This could include unraveling. So having no control over your emotions, okay, feeling like an emotional roller coaster, having angry outbursts or crying spells, conflict or tension with other educators, pupils, or parents, or in your personal life even, being isolated or withdrawing, not being as present as you used to, increased absenteeism or presenteeism, so not showing up for work or for commitments that you made. And when you are there, you're there, but you're not there. So not being present and taking it in for what it is. feeling drained or overwhelmed, your loss in motivation, increased irritability, feelings of helplessness, being trapped, defeated, physical symptoms like chronic fatigue and exhaustion, changes in your sleeping patterns, your appetite, headaches, muscle pains, increased reliance on substances, whether it's alcohol or caffeine or certain medications, and difficulty disconnecting from work. Okay, so these are just some indicators, but just remember that everybody has bad days. Okay, it's therefore important not to interpret every little dip in your mood or every little lapse in your concentration or every little moment of fear of your welfare in health as a sign of possible mental illness. However, some of these signs and symptoms may be helpful indicators that something might be wrong. If behavioral changes are observed persistently, it's easier to monitor whether it might be the case, and especially if these signs and symptoms are prolonged. Okay, it's always good to do a check on yourself. So now that we know that we can easily be victims of compassion fatigue and desensitization and burnout, and being able to recognize what might be the signs and symptoms, how do we address it? So there's so many ways that we can address it, and due to the fact of time and trying to help you benefit from all of this as most as possible, these were some of the factors and more that I'm going to focus on to help you determine what you can do to manage these signs and symptoms more effectively. So the first one refers to self-care. So self-care is basically just engaging in regular self-care activities such as exercise, hobbies, spending time with your loved ones, practicing relaxation techniques, anything that can help you recharge emotionally. Boundaries. So like I've mentioned earlier, some of the things that can lead to this is the lack of boundaries, not having the ability to say no. And usually that is connected to feelings of guilt. It's sometimes hard to say no because we feel guilty. But when we establish clear boundaries between work and personal life, it helps to prevent emotional burnout. So we need to learn to say no because it's necessary to avoid overextending ourselves. Okay. Mindfulness and stress management. So practices like mindfulness, meditation, stress managing techniques can help you stay present. It can help with your professionalism, and it can help you manage your emotions just more effectively. Rotate and shared responsibilities. So for me, this is a very interesting one, especially if we really struggle with control and letting go and trusting others. It might be very hard for you to delegate and trust others with responsibilities. So at your school, where possible, try to rotate roles, sharing those responsibilities, distribute tasks among each other to help carry the emotional burden from certain things, just to try and prevent a single person from becoming overwhelmed, or yourself to be even becoming overwhelmed. So therefore you need to learn to allow parents to be involved, other educators, assistants that might be part of the class. Physical well-being. So your physical well-being, ensuring proper nutrition, exercise, sleep, all of that can significantly contribute to your mental and emotional state, your resilience building behaviors, which I'm going to discuss in more detail in the next slide. Continuing with education, so regularly participating in workshops like you are doing now, so well done. Seminars, educational opportunities, anything that can enhance your skills or even provide you new perspectives on managing stress or burnout. Then professional supervision. So that's also very important. So regularly meeting with supervisors or mentors can provide a platform for discussing these challenges that we've mentioned earlier, certain cases that you find difficult, and that can help you to get the proper guidance and recommendations needed. And then lastly, to seek support. So by regularly talking about your challenges, there's an analogy that says that I need to blow off some steam. That's very important because sometimes we don't always get the opportunity to blow off some steam, and therefore it's important to know who do you trust that can provide you with a safe, confidential space where you can just be. And therefore you can also consider not only your colleagues but mentors and mental health care practitioners that will provide you as well with a safe space for healthy emotional outlets and how to help you deal with stress more effectively. Okay, so this has been a lot of information and it might feel like I'm rushing this. So if there's any, at any point that you feel that you are not with me or you're afraid that you're going to forget what you wanted to ask, please just drop something in the chat. And if there's something that needs attention now, I just ask Wynand from BrainJar to make me aware. Okay, so I trust that we are all on the same page still. So it's important to recognize that compassion fatigue is a natural response to being consistently exposed to any type of suffering from individuals. So in your case, like I've mentioned earlier, being so that's why it's important to always seek help and support, and that is important for me to make a point of it, that it's not a sign of weakness. Okay, being vulnerable is a sign of strength because you expose yourself not knowing. Sorry, I think I lost you there for a moment.
You are back. I can hear you. Can you hear us, Monica?
Yeah, we can hear you and see you again.
Monica?
I do apologize. Can you guys hear and see me clearly?
Yes.
Yes, we can see you. You can just start to again.
Okay, I got one yes.
Confirm.
Okay, I will do so. I do apologize. I am getting a message that my internet connection is unstable. I'm not too sure why, but let's hope that we can pull through. Okay, and I do apologize for any background noise. I see that my children have finished eating. So it might be that they are in behind a closed door. So yeah, what I was trying to say is based on ways that we address compassion fatigue and desensitization and ultimate burnout, it's important to recognize that compassion fatigue is a natural response, especially if you're consistently working with suffering individuals and in your case, the vulnerable children. So seeking help and support is not a sign of weakness. Being vulnerable is exposing yourself, not knowing what to receive in return. And that's quite a strength. That takes a lot of guts. So rather be proactive and step toward maintaining your well-being than being in denial of it or fearing what people might think when you are afraid of judgment. Okay, so I've mentioned resilient building behaviors, which I will discuss in more detail in the next slide. So resilient building behaviors is also another component that can be used to strengthen us in order to manage all types of difficulties in life, whether it's in your personal life or whether it is in the work environment. So what are common behavior building techniques or activities that we can apply to strengthen us and to give us the needed agency. And I just want to mention that it might feel that a lot of what I might have already shared seems repetitive, but it's because it's all interlinked. Okay. And just like with children, the more you repeat it, the better the brain path forms in their mind for information to get stuck and to be able to be used. So therefore, I believe that being repetitive on this platform will also allow the important information to be soaked up like a sponge, and when needed, it can be released. So one of the resilience building behaviors is making connections. Okay. So making connections is doing anything that makes you feel alive. Social connections is one of the strongest contributors to building resilience in a society. So people with healthy social connections and support networks are usually the ones that are more likely to cope better over the long term in spite of immediate threats, whether it's physical threats or emotional threats that they might be going through. They are just more resilient because of the social network that they have created, that they can rely on for support. So connection can be in the form of people that you trust. Connection can be in the form of a community, whether it's going to the gym. That's a community where people have the same set and the same ideas and goals. That's connection. Connection can be through the form of music even, because we feel connected with the music and the lyrics. It changes us in a way that makes us feel alive. So that's why connection and anything that makes you feel connected, even being creative, writing, being poetic, if you're one of those, painting or drawing, anything that can create connection for you. And then secondly, accepting and adaptability behavior. So being able to be more accepting and willing to adapt to change. So unfortunately, change is one of the only constants in life. So being able to adapt to that change is one of the biggest strengths that you will allow yourself to build the needed resilience in difficult times. So the third one is take care of your health. So health is very important to ensure that you have a balanced lifestyle with exercise, nutrition, mental health. So going for regular checkups if there's any concerns. Then one thing that I found very interesting when it comes to resilience building behaviors is identifying triggers. So setting goals and building habits. So when we are able to identify things that triggers us, then we are able to recognize what the root therefore is, and we start taking responsibility and ownerships of our healing. So it's very important to know what really works you up, what gets you anxious, what leaves you depressed, what makes you hopeless, and then what can you do from a mental, physical, and spiritual perspective to improve on these triggers. So in this case, it can be helpful to even go and see a healthcare practitioner, whether it's a social worker, a counselor, or a psychologist, or even a life coach. Investing in your growth, I like that one as well, because as people, we constantly change. You're not the same person that you were 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago. You have changed in various ways, whether it's your titles that have changed because maybe you're currently a student, but you might also be an employer, you might be a spouse, you might be a parent. So do you see that we constantly change due to responsibilities and roles, and that's why we need to invest in growth. So we need to look for those opportunities for growth and self-discovery. It's important to recognize that your self-esteem is going to affect all the parts of your life as well. So therefore make a point of it to invest in your personal growth and all the other areas in your life that has changed over the years. And then this one for me is very important, and especially in the times that we are currently living in, with all the information being out there, we are really overwhelmed because we live in a generation of information. There's just so much information that we don't know what to do, and it can so easily create a lot of confusion and despair. So that's why I just thought it would be good to also bring this into the discussion for resilient building behaviors, is to try and avoid absolute and catastrophic thinking, and to always create opportunities for hope. So by avoiding thinking in absolutes is, for example, if something is bad, it doesn't mean everything is bad. If something is imperfect, it doesn't mean it's not worth trying at all. Sometimes the third or the fourth time, it's better than not trying at all, or giving it no options when the first choice wasn't available. Keeping things into perspective and proportion, and trying to maintain a helpful outlook on the future. So basically, it's trying to stay positive, but positive not in the sense of wishful thinking. It's trusting that whatever you are hoping for, you can bring that future into being, working in a specific direction that creates hope. And without hope, we can't cope. So this doesn't mean that we are ignoring the bad or minimizing the reality of pain and suffering. It just says that instead of that, we always try to strive towards hope, and trusting that there is something better and there is light at the end of the tunnel. So finding meaning in life and situations which will make any type of difficulty that we might face valuable. Okay, I hope that you're still with me. It's quite a mouthful. So then, in addition to what I have already shared and all the other coping mechanisms and resilient building behaviors, another part that I thought would be good to focus on is healthy boundaries. So setting healthy boundaries. And the best way for me to describe boundaries is through the form of a guardrail. So I had this little individual with a little guardrail. So whenever we go up and down stairs, there's always this rail, and that rail protects us. Or even when you're driving in your car and you're on a steep cliff, there's always a guardrail. And that guardrail is there in order to protect you before things get worse, or for serious injuries or death. So a boundary basically is a limit or a line that separates one thing from another. And when we think about a healthy boundary, it's a line that separates anything that's going to be bad for you. So you put it in place with the intention to protect yourself and the other party involved. So what are the main areas of boundaries? I just want to take a sip of water. Then I'll get into it. Okay. So the main areas of the type of boundaries that we get is, first of all, physical boundaries. Okay. So you need to protect your personal space and body. So not allowing others to invade in your personal space or touch you without consent. That's a physical boundary that we can put in place. I know that in some cultures that certain people in their cultures, when they see each other, they greet with a kiss. But if you have gone through a trauma in your life, and that can be very triggering for you, you put in a physical boundary to protect yourself and the relationship. Okay, so that's what a physical boundary could look like. Emotional boundaries, to protect your thoughts and your feelings, okay, not allowing others to dictate how you feel or invalidating your emotions. So a lot of times we can so easily see that people can drain us through the negativity. So putting a boundary into the conversations that you are willing to entertain. Verbal boundaries, how to protect on what you speak or what you discuss, not allowing others to speak to you disrespectfully or to abuse or use abusive language. Okay, that's a verbal boundary, and that's a verbal boundary that you can even recognize. These boundaries you can also apply to your work sphere. So to say that in the classroom, this is a rule, this is a verbal boundary. We don't tease each other. We don't talk down on each other. We don't use foul language. Those are examples of verbal boundaries because it protects you and the children. And time. So protect how you spend your time. So setting limits on how much time you spend at work or other obligations. We all just have 24 hours in a day. So how are you going to use that time effectively? And then obviously work as well. Protect your limit. So why do we care about it? Why do we need it? It's because self-care is so often viewed as something that should not be worried about too much. People often view it as selfish behavior if we do apply self-care, or not important, or just not something that they have time to get to because they have more important priorities to get to. So what they don't realize, or what you might not realize, and even myself, is that if we don't implement self-care strategies the way that we are supposed to, we will eventually become depleted, we will become drained, we will be irritated, we will be rushed, we will be unfocused, annoyed, frustrated, overwhelmed. So all of these things impact ultimately the quality of your life, as well as how you perform at work and in your personal life. So do you see actually what a big role self-care plays? And research has shown that self-care promotes positive health outcomes. We tend to live longer. It fosters resilience so that we are able at better managing stress. It also shows that overall it improves our quality of life. So this is something not to neglect. So I know that it's an hour almost that has gone. So just to give us a little bit of a break and a change of scenery, what I would like to do now is I'm going to share a little video with you. I did try to test this video earlier to see if everybody can hear the sound. So I hope this time around that it is going to work. It's about 8-minute video. I want you to listen. This is a very old video, so the pixels are bad, so you're not necessarily going to see what the guy that talks on this video is trying to explain or write on the board, but listen to what he has to say. And while you listen to what he says, I want each and every one of you to make a note of what stands out for you in this video, because I'm going to ask some of you to share what it was that stood out for you in this video.
The doctor said, Wayne, when you go on this little break, you got to do everything that just fills your tank. Would you write this down? The first is this: you got to know what fills and what drains your tank. You got to know that. It's sort of like this, and I'll draw some stuff on this board, but it's sort of like you have an emotional tank here, and you've got a drain, and you've also got an input. And if your level sort of serotonin or your emotions are at a high level here and it's full because you've got some good input coming in, wonderful. You can do all kinds of stuff. But if this drain becomes greater than your input, you begin to decrease in this sort of level on the inside. And when it gets to this first mark here, it needs to be almost like alarms going off. Because what will happen is you'll have an anxiety attack. And you'll feel it. Alarm should go off. If you don't start to fill, it'll drain down to the second, where you'll have an emotional breakdown. And if you ignore it, and like me, just was just a dead leader running, if you're not careful and gets down to here, this is where they say you have a nervous breakdown. But alarms should be going off at each level. And you need to know what fills your tank and what drains it. And you need to write that down. For me, sports, I ride a motorcycle, I paddle out in the ocean, I love to read, do devotions, travel with my wife. Those are some of the things. You need to know what fills your tank. And during this time, I had to do only the things that filled my tank. There's some things that drain. Too much counseling for me drains me. When I've got unresolved problems at home, when I have staff that have unresolved problems and they just continue to go on like they live on a level of mediocrity, it just bothers me. There are certain things that really fry me. These are overtaxed schedule, overbooking myself, inability to say no. These things drain me. Now, what happens is when you get too busy, now watch this. When you get too busy and the drain gets to be increased, what happens is when you say, oh, I'm just too busy, I can't play basketball anymore, something that filled your tank. I'm so busy in the ministry, I really can't take time to ride a motorcycle, or I can't do paddling, or I can't take the time to read, or do this or that. Why? Because I'm too busy. Then when that happens, that's called suicide. Because if you've got an increased drain and you shut off your input, guess what's going to happen? Do you know when my schedule gets busier, you know what I do now? I increase my play. In fact, right now I'm on a 5-day motorcycle trip. I parked my bike in Billings and flew here to be with you. And when I get back, I'm getting back on, going through Yellowstone. The busier your schedule, the more taxing, the more you increase your fill. But what's our proclivity? We usually cut off the fill because we got too much drain. Do you understand how nuts that is? We do that all the time. You write down what fills and what drains. And here's what I'd like to give you as an assignment. You then have your spouse do the same thing. Have her or him, you have them fill out what fills their tank. Just things. Ask yourself these 3 questions when you say, what fills my tank? Ask yourself these 3 questions. First is this: what am I doing, and with whom am I doing these things, and where am I doing it? When I do these things, I feel most alive and I feel the fullest. Can you remember those 3 questions? What am I doing? With whom am I doing these things, and where am I doing these things? That when I do this, I feel most alive and I feel the fullest. That'll help you to think through what fills your tank. And you got to know yourself in that way, because when the times get tough, you're going to have to make sure, because you can handle all kinds of drain if you've got a lot of fill coming in. But if you don't, you're in trouble. And as ministry gets more complicated, the drain increases, and that which used to fill your tank is not going to keep up with the drain. And so you've got to measure that. Then have your spouse do it, and you've got to know what fills her tank. And then this is what I'd suggest that you do. When you're done, you switch papers. You give your wife or your spouse yours. Your spouse, gives you hers, and then you use that as a prayer list over the next month. And you pray. I pray for my wife that, Lord, help me to be someone that helps her fill her tank in these ways, and help me to alleviate some of these drains. Do you know what kind of friendship you'll start to develop if you'll do those 2 things? It'll help you immensely. Some time ago, when we first moved to Hawaii, we brought our kids. The grandkids left mom or grandmother in Oregon, and we moved to Hawaii. And what I didn't know was one of the things that really filled my wife Anna's tank was talking with her mom about the grandkids and all of these things. So She would call her about every 2 days, and she'd spend an hour on the phone. Now, I'm just brand new in ministry, and when the phone bill is $100 and some a month from her calling her mom, I just flew off the handle. I said, you can't do this anymore. You're going to take me to the poorhouse. I can't handle this. If you want to talk to your mother from now on, you have her call you, or you call her collect. I was a compassionate man. And I said, and you can do that once a week. And you know, my wife is so sweet. She said, okay, and she complied. But you know what? After about 2 months, I noticed my wife was changing. She was becoming the wicked witch of the north. And I thought, what is happening to her? And what I didn't realize was her sharing her life with her mom as her best friend was something that really filled her tank. And me not knowing what fills her tank, actually, I was cutting off stuff that she looked forward to. You think we become good friends then? And the things that drained her tank, I was demanding she do more of. Our marriage was getting really thin really fast. And then I understood this, and we made some changes. And I said, honey, I'm so sorry. You and your mom are best friends, and I have been so blind. You call your mom as often as you want to. And she didn't abuse it. But I tell you, $100 a month, $150 a month is a small price tag to pay for a happy wife. Now let me tell you the kicker. She started calling her mom again, and she just turned back into the beautiful lady that I married. And here's the kicker. About 1.5 years, her mother died. And you think about it. What would my marriage be today if I had stuck to my stupid guns and her mom passed away? Do you understand what would be going on in our life? This is incredibly important. If you'll learn what fills and what drains your tank, it will save you years, might save your ministry and your marriage as well.
Anna, what stood out for you? Please share with us.
I think that all of our partners should watch that video, especially the part where he said, no, we should just give our wives $150 a month, because I fully agree with that. I could do with $150, make me happy. That'll fill my cup.
I love that sense of humor.
So I didn't really fully understand what he was saying, but in the beginning. But I think in a way with what I took from the video was with what he was saying is that you can't prioritize too much of the good as well, because then I think that's what he was saying, because then the more important things also kind of get left if you prioritize too much of the good things, like what he said with him, I think he said swimming and doing when he was going on holiday, all of the activities that he had to do. But maybe he didn't prioritize family, or I didn't fully understand the video. Yeah.
Okay. So no worries. I'm going to explain in more detail because I know that there always can be misunderstandings. But what I liked about what you said, and I want to, especially from an important perspective, you can write the name down. I didn't add this in my presentation, but it might be helpful for all of you. I think it is Stephen Covey. I hope I pronounced his name correctly, but he wrote a book of 7 highly effective habits of 7 habits of highly effective people. And in that book, there's a section that talks about time management and how he talks about 4 different quadrants that we place our time in, from what is important and urgent. And that's what you've just said, that sometimes what we tend to do is we either play in the areas where everything is not important and not urgent, so we slack in purpose and drive and motivation, or we get stuck in an area where everything is urgent and important, and that's where you were referring to. Then you don't focus on the things that are important. such as family and your health and career and goals and dreams. And what he refers to is that we all have to live in the quadrant of what is important but not urgent. Because if you're going to focus on everything that's urgent and important the whole time, you're going to burn out. If you're only going to focus on the things that are fun, you're going to miss out on the things that are important, like family. But when you live in the quadrant where it's all about what is important but not urgent, you will be able to meet life's goals that are fulfilling. So that's just a takeaway that I would like to add on to the discussion that we just had. Anything else that stood out for somebody from what this guy had shared in the video? Yes, so it's Samki. I do apologize for pronunciations, just correct me.
Yes, it's SELFCARE.
Hi,
Okay, what
the
stood
floor
out
is yours.
for me? Okay, hello everybody. What stood out for
Hi.
me is that we have not to be ignorant of what is fulfilling to our lives, and we have to know, like, how can I explain it? We must not be like part of the problem. We must manage our relationships like perfectly and not be causing harm to people, and we must be mindful of the people who belittle us and those who add value in our lives. And what else? Like, we mustn't like take for granted our mental health or physical health. Yeah, I can say that.
Sure. Thank you so much for sharing. I love that as well, focusing on what is valuable and not rejecting that. Anybody else? One more person before we continue.
Hi.
Dudu, I see that you
Yes.
unmuted. Hi. Also, Dudu or Grace?
Yes, both.
Okay. Dudu means sleep for me, and Grace means, yeah, a lot,
Yes.
almost like mercy. I like both.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you and good evening, everyone. I'm having a flu, so my voice is not clear enough. So what I learned from this video is that it's very important to be happy than to be sad, even though there are things that makes us sad. But don't prioritize or dwell on the sadness things, but dwell on the happiness side of things. So that's what I learned. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dudu. I really appreciate the participation and the inputs. And the reason why I asked this question is because I just wanted all of us to recognize that we are unique. So even though there might have been similarities, so I see somebody mentioned something in the chat, so maybe I just have to, Nicolette said also about balancing life, which is generally difficult. Yes, that's so true. Thank you so much for sharing, Nicolette. And so getting back to what I was trying to explain is that we are all unique. We are unique because of our frame of references, our cultural affiliations, religious affiliations, personality types. There's so many factors that influence who we are and how we experience life consciously and subconsciously. And just through this video, there's not one person that had exactly the same thing that stood out for them. And that's what I love about uniqueness and why we need each other. And why I just want to ensure that you are getting what is needed for you out of this presentation. So I'm just going to share the last bit of my presentation with all of you, and I really hope that I get the correct one. Let me just check. So it's that one. I'm going to share it. So I'm just going to, so we were done from the current slide. We did the video and then I asked the question. So basically what Wayne, that's the name of the person in the video, shared is the following picture. he explained that we all have an emotional tank, but I like referring to it as an overall being tank, because our emotions are just a third of who we are. I strongly believe that we are physical beings, we are emotional beings that's connected to our knowledge, our way of thinking, our value systems and beliefs. So it's very broad, and then spiritual beings. So those three areas in our life, if one is affected, is going to have a ripple effect on the rest. So for example, if you have a lack of in sleep, say you have a small baby and they kept you up all night, then you're more likely to be physically exhausted the next day. That's going to affect your concentration levels, and it's also going to affect your mood. You might be more irritable, less patience. So do you see then, from a physical perspective, you didn't get enough sleep, it's a ripple effect on your emotional state as well. So that's why I refer to it as the overall well-being tank. So what he said is that we come into this life and our tank is full until we start taking up responsibilities and different roles in life. You were a child, and then you become a pupil, and then you start having friends, and then you start going to school and having to attend to homework, so outside activities, maybe some kind of, and then you graduate. Sorry, I don't know why my voice is going as well now. And then you start fulfilling the role of an employer, and then later on become a spouse or a partner and a parent, and so on and so on. So the more you grow, the more things there are that's going to take your time and attention, so the more likely you are of being drained. So that natural fall that was there doesn't come naturally anymore. It's an intentional process, and that was what he was talking about. You need to know what fills your tank. You need to know what makes you feel good, what strengthens you and builds your resilience, so that when time gets tough, and it's going to happen when things drain you, whether it's losing somebody close to you, or it's the end of the year and you have to do evaluations, or it's conflict matters in your personal life, it's draining. So when you know how to fill yourself and constantly be aware of that, then when the times come to drain you, you are less likely to experience burnout, to experience desensitization, to experience compassion fatigue. And in the worst case scenarios, like he mentioned, you are less likely to experience anxiety attacks, emotional breakdowns, and ultimately nervous breakdowns. So don't neglect your self-care. That is what it's all about. Filling your tank is your self-care. So how do we determine what we need in order to fill our tank? So there's the questions that he mentioned in the video. Questions like, what fills and drains you emotionally? Who am I with when this happens? What am I doing? Where am I doing this? Where do I draw my energy from? What steals my energy? If you're able to determine what steals your energy, you need to determine where are you lacking boundaries. What have you found helpful in challenging times? What do you enjoy? What challenges you? What helps you to relax and recharge? So yet again, from the 3 areas in your life, physically, sleep, diet, exercise, emotionally, relationship activities, grief is something that can drain you during a time, and resilient building behaviors, and then spiritually, being mindful, prayer, meditation. So if you had to do this exercise for yourself, this is what it could look like. So if you ask yourself these questions, it will help you to determine where you draw your strength from, what builds your resilience, and it will help you to identify where you need boundaries and what type of boundaries. So I did this exercise. So I'm being vulnerable. I'm exposing myself now to a platform of people that I don't know at all, but that's a strength. like I said, not a sign of weakness. So when I did this exercise, what I came up with, things that fill me, is I like going for walks in nature. So I need to get outside. I need to feel the sun against my skin, need to breathe in fresh air, listen to the sounds of birds chirping. Alone time, because I work with people on a daily basis, it can be sometimes very draining. So I recharge with alone time. Connecting with loved ones. So do you see, sometimes it can be very contradicting, because as much as people can drain me, that much I need people as well. So I need to know where the balance is. I love a relaxing bath. And especially if I can do it on my own, where there's no animal husband or child knocking on the door. And sometimes while taking a relaxing bath, listening to music or a podcast. So I call it doubling it up, doing two things that I enjoy at the same time. So I don't have to do expensive hobbies, and including yourself, like this guy did for motorbike rides and going on expensive holidays to fill his tank. These are simple things that you can do every single day to ensure that your tank is being filled. Interesting topics. I find it very interesting to engage with people about topics that I haven't ever considered before. Listening to podcasts. I love the bushveld. I make a point of it. My husband and we don't want to have a lavish lifestyle, but we like to go on holiday in the Kruger. So we make a point of it to try and always be there in the bush, disconnected from the rush of the city life. I like Bible study and prayer. I like social events. Professional help. So when I get drained, having also to do a lot of counseling and being encountered with a lot of the suffering of people and in situations of this world is draining. So I myself need somebody to talk to, just as an outlet, and to get some guidance and support. And music. Who doesn't love music? We all have different types of genres. So you have to know what fills your tanks. And then also very important, what drains it. So overbooked schedules, overcommitting, secondary trauma. So secondary trauma, we all can experience secondary trauma if we drive by an accident. It's not that you were directly involved in the accident, but you received it secondhand because you witnessed the aftermath. That can have an impact on you. Health challenges. So one of the, I think it was Dudu or Grace that mentioned that she is still struggling with the flu. If I have the flu or any other challenge, and especially having to be a mom, you can't take a break and you just have to continue with life, but it throws you back. That drains me. The lack of boundaries, because I still sometimes struggle with these people-pleasing tendencies. I tend to find it difficult at times to say no. So sometimes I have to check myself and just say that I can't please everybody. I can't say yes to everyone. Spiritual disconnection, the fear of failure, rejection, childhood traumas that might pop up now and then, overstimulating. So being overstimulated with a lot of sounds or whatever it is at that moment that's making it difficult for me just to be present, and my heightened nervous system. So if I experience a lot of anxiety. So these are the things that drains me. So when I know that this is what drains me, I need to make a point of it to know in connection that if I know, okay, I feel spiritually disconnected, what fills me? Okay, Bible study and prayer. If I know that I'm overstimulated, what do I need? Time away from noise and people. I need to, so that's where I will take a relaxing bath late at night when everything and everybody is quiet. Overcommitting, to say that, okay, I'm not going to go to the next social event, not to offend anybody, but just to protect my own well-being, because at the end of the day, if I don't take care of myself, I won't be able to take care of others and the other priorities in my life. So please do this exercise and get somebody to be your accountability, so that when they see that you are being drained, they can keep you accountable to focus on the things that needs to fill you. Okay. So self-care, therefore, is giving the world the best of you instead of what's left of you. I just love that because it's so profound. I'm sure that most of us wants to give the best of ourselves to those around us at home, and for the beautiful children that you are going to work with or are already working with in the preschools. So if that is what you want, self-care needs to be a priority in your life. So in conclusion, can you believe it? We've managed to reach the end. In conclusion, being an ECD or early childhood development educator, teacher, or practitioner is not just a job. It's a calling, okay? You won't necessarily get rich through this profession, but you will have the opportunity to shape little lives through the fundamental groundwork and the needed love and support that you will be giving them. So you have the privilege of helping to shape our future generations for the good. It will be draining sometimes, but I believe wholeheartedly that the reward will be worth it. So therefore, I plead with each and every one of you on this platform, make sure that you are following this career path for the right, be your passion and give you a sense of purpose. So if you are here today and you just decided that, this looks easy, or I'm going to do it because I don't know what else to do, double check yourself again, because knowing that your career is a third of your existence, it needs to be something that's going to be worthwhile, that is fulfilling and significant in your life. And the thing is, it's not just going to affect you, but it's going to affect the little ones. And they need somebody that's stable. They need somebody that's safe, and they need somebody that's secure. And if you don't enjoy this career, then rather make a shift before making damage. Okay, so that's it from me. I see that we have, just need to check, is it Catherine? Hi, I think the video tells us about if you have emotional problems, you must always try to be positive, at least keeping yourself busy by reading books, traveling, playing, and sports, and so on. Exactly. That's exactly it. And I hope the way that I've tried to explain it by making it a little bit more personal, just planted that little seed that was needed, to give you a better understanding of what this presentation was about today. So, is there any questions? Anybody that has any questions? I'm just going to stop sharing here. Any questions, comments, uncertainties that you might have? Going once, twice.